Welcome to this Tuesday's edition of our Tuesday training, Selling with Science, but Don't Drink the Bathwater. I decided that I wanted to share a little bit of scientific information with you because science has always been my passion. From the time I was very young, I was just fascinated with all things science. I was amazed at the human body and how it worked and how we interacted with our world and how just science on every level amazed and excited me. And consequently, I pursued an education in science and was headed for a career in medicine when I had a course correction and decided to embark on the greatest scientific experiment of my life, which made me the mother to 4 children. Even though I opted not to go to medical school, I maintained my love for the sciences, and it's very much a part of my world and a part of our family, and it's a part of our everyday conversation. And I've been accused of bringing a lot of science into my posh selling, but I wanted to be able to share some of this background, some of this insight, and some of this valuable information with you, but I'm going to share it with you with a huge and important caution. Okay, let's start our science lesson today with a little anatomy and physiology lesson. So let's go to the brain and our sense of olfaction. We're going to talk about olfaction and the amygdala. Olfaction is just a scientific name for our sense of smell, and the amygdala is the center in the brain. It's a little almond-shaped region in the very center of the brain that's responsible for both storage as well as retrieval of memories. The amygdala receives lots of highly processed sensory data from the olfactory system. Remember, that's our sense of smell, and it connects this data across several other modalities. So the amygdala is where emotion gets attached to the memories and the memories get processed and stored. It's also where the memories are retrieved, and when the memories are pulled, that same emotion is pulled with them. You may have seen people have a memory surface as they're smelling your posh products. They may, for example, pick up a Sassiuma slather and reminisce about a time when they were in an orange grove and having a great experience on a beautiful sunny day. It makes me think about a time at Disneyland, or maybe it's California Adventure, where you're riding in the big chairs and they blast that orange scent as you're cruising, as you're simulated cruising across the tops of the orange groves in California. It's my favorite ride. I love that one, and that's what Sassiuma makes me think of. This phenomena of having the scent actually evoke a memory and also bring back powerful emotions is called the Proust phenomenon. Here's a picture of Marcel Proust. He was actually a French novelist, critic, and essayist, and he wrote about an experience of eating cake and drinking tea and having that experience as an adult bring back vivid and disturbing childhood memories. And so we've come to recognize that that association between scent and memory and emotion as the Proust phenomenon. So what does this mean to you in your posh business? This means that you can engage human physiology with your posh products, and you can let your customer's amygdala subconsciously do all of the work selling for you. But what you have to do in order to accomplish this is you have to get products on people. They have to be able to touch, to feel, to smell, and to try them. And that's why samples and testers are so important at this point in the game right now. And that's the reason that person-to-person, one-on-one, direct contact selling is the very best way right now for you to sell your products. Let me give you a real life example from a show that we did where you can engage the amygdala and your customer's sense of olfaction and increase your sales at an event. I like to cut up a snarky bar at an event, and I might have my products displayed something like this. But if I have a piece of a snarky bar cut up and just sitting out on the table in an event, customers will come up and they'll be shopping at my table. This, of course, is my Posh Science lab, so not exactly the same as shopping. But as they're coming up and looking at my products, they will invariably smell the alluring, intoxicating scent of that snarky bar. Y'all know you can smell it right through the package. So they're wondering what the scent is, and they always ask, what am I smelling? Or they'll pick it up, and then they'll start to feel it. And now all of a sudden we've engaged another sense in that they're touching and they're feeling and they're having another layer of sensory experience, and they're smelling it, and all of a sudden they're having the emotional memory experiences with it. And I don't have to say anything about the snarky bar. Customers immediately start asking me, what is this? What do you do with it? And so I get the opportunity to tell them about that, and it's a perfect segue and lead into any of our other chunks or to the other scrubs that we have with the company. Because these little snarky beads in here, these little microderma beads, Pac-Man shaped beads, are the same as in the BFF, only they're much finer in the BFF. So I have lots of segues of where to go and things that I can tell my customers and the experience that I can give them, all because I left a little piece of snarky bar cut up, opened, and kind of washed off so that they could touch it sitting on my table where they could smell it. So thanks to Marcel Proust for identifying and writing about this phenomena, but mostly thanks for its powerful physiological effects in actually engaging my customers on a subconscious physiological level. Helen Keller, y'all know who Helen Keller is. Of course, she was blind and deaf, and she was an educator. She said something that I think is significant when it comes to the Proust phenomena and to olfaction in the amygdala. Helen Keller said, "Smell is a potent wizard that transports us across thousands of miles and all the years we have lived. Odors, instantaneous and fleeting, cause my heart to dilate joyously or contract with remembered grief." Who would know better than Helen Keller, who had no sight and no hearing, about the power of the sense of smell? Let me just give you another little scientific, as in science we love data and we love studies that verify and validate all of our hypotheses about things. And in 1935, a gentleman by the name of Laird conducted a survey of 254 men and women. Here's some of the things that he found. Of the 254 men and women that he surveyed, more than 4 out of 5 reported that olfactory cued memory experiences were vivid, emotional, and old for them. And what's interesting is 76% of women that he surveyed and 46% of the men reported that their odor-cued memories were the most vivid for them. Only 7%, only a very small number of the women and 14% of the men who participated in this survey described those odor-cued memories as neutral. So what this tells us is that women respond more emotionally and more powerfully and dramatically than men to odors, scents, fragrances. And this is good news for us because women comprise our target market. They make up the bulk of our target market. And more good news on a scientific level, humans respond more powerfully and emotionally to olfactory sensations or smells than either sights or sounds. Because of the power of our olfactory systems, humans spend over $20 billion a year, and this was a 1995 figure. They spend over $20 billion a year on soaps and other scents that cover up what they consider to be offending human odors. There was more interesting data from this study that said that a lot of humans, most humans actually find their own personal body odors offending, and that's why they spend so much every year on those products. So, in our little anatomy and physiology lesson so far, I've laid out the A and P behind the human brain, the sense of smell, and I've quoted research data to support the ideas that I've presented. But here's the most important takeaway from this segment. In a very, very real way, you have incredible power to make people's worlds better, happier, emotionally more joyful, and things like that. For heaven's sakes, share Posh. Too many times, I think consultants really limit themselves in selling Posh because they have the mindset that they're trying to convince or coerce someone to do something against their will. Remember, I just told you, Americans spend $20 billion a year on soaps and lotions and other products to cover up what they consider to be offending human odors. And scents and smells processed through the amygdala have power to bring back memories and make us happy. So if you will change your mindset and think of selling Posh as sharing, as bringing people joy, as giving them a positive emotional experience, your sales will skyrocket compared to if you just maintain the mindset that you're trying to coerce or convince. So that's the most important takeaway from our anatomy and physiology lesson today. Okay, are you ready for your chemistry lesson today? Because chemistry is a big part of what we do at here at Posh. I've got my safety goggles ready to go. Let's proceed to the chemistry. Ooh, these have been through a few heavy-duty Posh experiments. I better get the ones I can see out of. All right, let's move on to chemistry, and let's talk about free radicals, because that's a term that we banter around from time to time, or you might read in the media associated with other products that are similar to ours. So what is a free radical, and why do we care about it? In an atom, electrons, which are negatively charged particles, are found in rings around a nucleus where protons and neutrons are tightly condensed. Protons are positively charged and neutrons are neutral. But these electrons rotate in rings on the outer, in rings outside of the nucleus of the cell. Okay, so in a stable situation, electrons always occur in pairs on the outside of the atom. And sometimes, in order to achieve this stability, two different atoms actually share electrons. This is the case with oxygen. You're probably familiar that the oxygen that we breathe, we sometimes refer to as O2. And that's because to make a stable oxygen molecule, two oxygen atoms come together and share electrons to create stability. Okay, so unstable molecules, which are also known as free radicals, are actually missing an electron, which is normally in pairs, we've said, and because they're seeking stability, they want an electron to be balanced. So they go about grabbing or stealing an electron from another molecule. So where a free radical steals an electron from another molecule, now this molecule is stable, it's satisfied, it's got all the electrons that it needs, but it leaves this one unbalanced and unstable. So now this molecule goes about grabbing an electron from another molecule, and you can see it starts this chain reaction, this chemical process of electron stealing. And this cycle goes on until it gets interrupted by either a molecule that has electrons to give or share, or until the molecules just completely degrade. So this process of electron stealing and free radicals robbing others of electrons we call oxidation. It involves breaking apart chemical bonds where stability was once achieved and then leaving unstable molecules in the process. We make free radicals every day just by breathing. Remember we said oxygen occurs in a stable molecule as O2. So we breathe it in as O2, but we can't use it as O2. We need to break that oxygen molecule apart into one oxygen here, one oxygen here. Now we have two free radicals in our system, but we combine them with other things chemically in our body, and then we respire or give off a metabolite or excrete or whatever. We excrete a byproduct of this oxidative process. Here's another example of how free radicals are formed. UV light is energy that is coming from the sun, and this particular wavelength of light has the ability to break the bonds, the chemical bonds that are holding certain molecules together. And in breaking those bonds apart, it produces free radicals. Pollution is another example of a source of free radicals in our world. Pollution is, byproducts from perhaps chemical processing or manufacturing or automotive exhaust or whatever. In all of these, byproducts or metabolites are being put out into the atmosphere, and these are often free radicals and unstable molecules. Now, why do we care about this? Let me tell you why we care about it. Free radicals can be detrimental and damaging to our cells, and they lead to breakdown and degradation in the body. That's just another name for this process of electron stealing and this chain reaction. That's degradation, or some might even refer to it as decay. And it's this process that's been implicated in many disease states. We're not going to talk about all of those disease states, but we are going to talk about specifically our skin as an organ and how those free radicals are important on our skin. So our skin is actually the largest organ on our body and comprises 16 to 22 square feet. If I were to hold up like my big king size sheet right here in front, that's the surface area that the skin on my body comprises. And it's an organ. It's a living, breathing organ in our body. And its mission, the skin is charged with protecting us as an organism as a whole. But every single day, our skin is being bombarded with these free radicals in the environment, and UV light, and chemicals that we put on our body, and pollution, and all of these different things. And free radicals actually do damage on our skin. They cause premature aging and wrinkling and loss of elasticity and breakdown of the cell membranes, which allows the lipids to harden. You could kind of think of it like the fats in our skin goes rancid, so to speak. Free radicals are responsible for causing skin cancer. They are responsible for all of the little changes in pigmentation or the discoloration or spots on your skin. Here's another example out in the real world, and perhaps this will put this in perspective for you. If we were to take a cast iron skillet that we use to cook breakfast in on a regular basis, put it outside in the rain, in the weather, in the moisture, in the atmosphere, what's going to happen to it? You've all seen it before. You've seen it on a barbed wire fence, you've seen it on other things. It's going to rust, right? It's going to degrade. That is the process of oxidation. That is the process of forming free radicals. And you can think of that same process as happening on your skin, or actually even, because our skin is made up of so many different layers, actually within the layers of our skin. Okay, so again, what does this mean to us and why do we care? We care because our Posh products are loaded with antioxidants. Antioxidants are a group of chemicals that have an extra electron or multiple electrons to give or to share with these unstable free radicals. So when they give a free radical an electron, they stabilize it, they neutralize it, they stop that chain reaction of degradation. They can also combine with a free radical, sharing electrons with it. It's another way they can neutralize it. We love antioxidants because they protect us against the dangerous effects of free radicals we come in contact with every day. Many of you probably take a multivitamin that's loaded with antioxidants. It's the same thing when we put free radicals on our skin. They protect and prevent free radical damage and degradation. Okay, so it would not be a very good science training if we did not do a little experimentation with our own Posh products. So today, we're gonna make some free radicals and we're gonna produce a little Posh gas. If it's Posh gas, you know it's gonna smell good, right? But we're not gonna smell today, and we are gonna wear our safety goggles because that's what you do. So, in my bottle here, I have a little vinegar. Imagine that is bathwater. And in my balloon, I am going to put a little crushed up fizzy triplet. So I've used my mortar and pestle here to crush up the fizzy triplet, and I'm going to put some of that into my balloon. Now, let's make some fabulous smelling Posh gas and see what we can accomplish with this. Are you ready? Vinegar, fizzy triplet, and voila! We can blow up our balloon with a fizzy triplet. Posh is amazing, wouldn't you agree? Okay, Poshland, it's time to have detox. We cannot leave a science lesson without talking about detox, because that's a big deal to us here at Posh. We've talked about how important and effective the antioxidants in the Posh products are. Now let's talk about another cleaner and protector in the Posh products that we love the most. Let's talk about activated charcoal. So we have a couple products. These are just a couple of them that have the activated charcoal in it. What is activated charcoal? Have you ever wondered that? I'm sure you've read the ingredient list and wondered, oh, what is that? Activated charcoal is elementally just carbon. You recognize it maybe as a black charcoal briquette. That's not exactly the same as activated charcoal. Activated charcoal is actually charcoal that's been treated with oxygen and heat and bombarded with the oxygen and heat to open up millions of tiny little pores in between all of those carbon atoms. And you can see in this diagram that the charcoal is activated because it now has a much bigger surface area once all of those little tiny pores and indentations are created. And this radically increases the absorptive capacity of the charcoal. To put this in perspective, one little 50 milligram dose of activated charcoal, and you're gonna have to imagine that my white salt here is actually black activated charcoal, but one little 50 milligram dose, which is equivalent to about 1/3 of a cup of activated charcoal, perhaps slightly less than 1/3 of a cup, it has the surface area of 10 football fields due to that activation and creating those little tiny fissures and pores in it. That's pretty amazing and pretty impressive. Here's what it does when the charcoal gets treated like that. The charcoal acts like a magnet, and it pulls and draws impurities and toxins and dirt out of the pores of the skin. And you can think of it very much like a magnet, where opposites attract. A negative polarity attracts a positive polarity and just has the ability to suck and pull that out. That's a process that the activated charcoal uses, and we call this process of pulling or drawing adsorption. It's not absorption, it's adsorption. So when the activated charcoal is exposed to contaminants, you can see from this diagram that those contaminants literally get sucked and trapped into the carbon's pores. Interestingly, activated charcoal also has an antibacterial property, and this is huge when we use it on our skin. You've heard Anne say multiple times that the clay, the mud, and the charcoal in the stripper can each pull and draw 1,000 times their weight in the dirt and the pollution and the toxins that get trapped in their skin. It's actually multiple 1,000 times that they can pull or draw. I want to show you though how you can really make a significant impact in demonstrating this and actually using the science of it with your customers. And that's in doing a smarter demonstration with the stripper. Okay, so when you're at a party or an event or whatever, I know that many of you love to have your customers put the stripper all over their face. Okay, if you will take the stripper and apply just a thin strip. Imagine that, a thin strip of it. You don't have to go very heavy, but if you'll just put a strip on your customer's arm and then let it dry, your customer will be able to actually feel a dramatic difference between where the stripper's been and where it hasn't. What I always do is I always have them put the stripper on and I tell them what they're going to expect to experience. So when I put the stripper on you, you might feel a little cooling sensation, perhaps a little tingling. That's the menthol that's in the stripper that's opening up the pores. Then clay, mud, and charcoal, all three are going to pull or draw the things that are trapped in your skin. As they pull and draw, you also might feel a little tingling. Now, when I do this, I try to put the stripper on my customers early in the demo and let it dry on them. But during this time that the stripper's drying, you have the opportunity to test 3, 4, 5 other Posh products. Okay, so once the stripper is dry on your customer's arm, you can just take any old wet wipe, baby wipe, and remove it for them. And it's always fun to talk to them about, what's being pulled off. It might be dirt, it might be pollution, it might be old product or lotion that gets trapped in the skin. Now, I wipe it all off, but then I like to take a clean part of the wet wipe and wipe one more time, because remember, and see, it's amazing, I'm still getting stuff off. In fact, I'll take a really clean one and I'll show you. One more time, I'll wipe. I'm still getting stripper and it's still pulling off what is trapped in the skin. So we have the stripper off, and I know it's wet. We use very technical drying instruments like a spare catalog or something to dry it. But what I always ask my customer to do is to take their finger, start up here above where the stripper was, run that finger down their arm and see if they can feel where the stripper was. Can you tell where it was?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Inevitably. It's never not happened. They can feel a huge difference in the skin where the stripper was. And almost always what they do is they actually grab their friends and say, hey, you gotta feel this. Check this out. This is the power of detox and activated charcoal and clay and mud that's in the stripper. Now, one of the things that you'll kind of notice when you do the stripper and when you do it on someone's arm like this, it almost gets a little grippy where it is. And people oftentimes have a hard time describing what they're feeling. And so I try to help them out. When you detox and you pull things out of the skin, it kind of shrinks it up and tightens a little bit. So you almost get a little bit more tone in the skin than you had before. It's definitely a little tighter and a little springier. But you can use this simple science and just being smart about how to test it on your customers to produce a lot more sales. If you put stripper on their entire face, they're not going to be able to tell the difference one side versus the other. However, if you do it on their arm, they can always feel a difference in where it wasn't, where it was, and where it wasn't. So that's a recommendation that I'm going to leave you with today. Sell with the science of detox by showing them where it wasn't, where it was, and where it wasn't. Today, we're going to talk about our favorite stimulant in the Posh products, and that is caffeine. When I was in college as an undergraduate, I wrote a paper about caffeine. And I remember distinctly that I titled my paper, Caffeine, the Two-Edged Sword, because clearly there were beneficial properties to caffeine as well as risks and detrimental effects that it could produce. In its raw form, caffeine looks a lot like powdered sugar. It's a white crystalline substance, and it is rapidly absorbed by the skin. Caffeine is also a vasoconstrictor, which means that it really did destroy the cellulite cells. Some implicate this vasoconstriction property of caffeine with muscle tension, higher blood pressure. So remember the detrimental effects that we're all familiar with and that we talk about when someone's had too much coffee. So caffeine used on the skin under the eyes reduces dark circles because the blood vessels, the skin is really thin under the eyes, which means that the blood vessels are very superficial. So when you apply caffeine there and you shrink those blood vessels, you actually visibly reduce the coloring that you would see of the vessels. And so the dark circles become less visible. And they lighten up. It also reduces the puffiness under the eyes as it shrinks the blood vessels. Has the same effect on cellulite-ridden skin. Does it get rid of cellulite? No, it does not get rid of cellulite. It does not destroy the cellulite fat cells. It only improves their appearance. Okay, so now you have all of this incredible scientific information to back up how great your Posh products are and why people should use them. You know about detoxing and some of the beneficial effects of caffeine and its vasoconstriction properties. And you know about the health benefits that Posh can provide to your skin because it's loaded with antioxidants, and you understand the power of the amygdala and the physiology that you can engage when your customers smell and experience the Posh products. So, do you run right out and start spewing all of this information to your customers? No, do not do it. Just like you would never drink your caffeine spiked bathwater because that's just nasty. There are some big cautions and considerations that should be exercised with this scientific information. It's really just too much to share with your customers. Only a very small percentage of them are afflicted in some way. And I'm going to use finger quotations on that word afflicted. I see it on Sharing Posh sometimes. My baby has eczema. My friend has rosacea. So-and-so just had a melanoma. Whatever it is, I want to share some information with you that hopefully will be very convincing in how you do want to approach people with this scientific information and with your Posh. As I see these things posted on Sharing Posh, I have to consider some of these facts. Do you realize that atopic dermatitis or eczema only affects about 17% of the US population? Is that the percent of the population that you want to sell your Posh products to? And the incidence of rosacea occurs in even fewer people. It only affects about 3% of the US population. Again, probably not the factor of the population that you want to go after. Skin cancer ranges in its incidence from 7 to 33% in the US, depending on the particular state that you live in. Are you satisfied with a third of the US people as just even potential Posh customers? Let's see. Acne certainly affects a lot of people, and it's a royal pain, and we all want to get rid of it. About 80% of people from 11 to 30 experience it periodically, but the incidence of acne diminishes with age, and it's intermittent and periodically. So do you just want the under 30 crowd who have just intermittent problems? I don't think so. So up to 70% of the US population experiences dry skin. Now maybe we're getting a little bit closer, right? You might want to target that 70% who does have dry skin. We could continue to go through lots of different examples, but let me ask you this question. What do you think the incidence or the percentage of the population is? Let me ask you this question. What do you guess is the percentage of the population that you would estimate would appreciate a little pampering now and then? Would you say it's in the 90 to 100% range? I would. I'd say it's close to 100% because I have yet to meet someone who just doesn't appreciate the pain. So, here's your science lesson in a nutshell. You have at your disposal and in your sales bag amazing Posh products that have the power and the ability to physiologically make people happy. They also have the ability to make people healthier and to protect them from damage and disease. These are really good products with excellent benefits. We espouse the fact that they are spa grade and made in the USA, but I want you to have all the confidence in the world that scientifically these actually make a difference, can make a difference in people's lives. But here's the caution, and you have to hear this if you hear nothing else today. Do not sell Posh on scientific claims. Use the science to your advantage. Activate the amygdala whenever you can. Show them the effects of detoxification. Show them how it feels when they sugar scrub their hands. Get them into the process and let them experience it. But don't make promises about the science. Use the science to your advantage, but don't make promises about it and never claim to be able to cure anything.